Hi, I'm Mark Dempsey. I'm an author and journalist. I'd like to tell you about my experience now with HEB. Yes, HEB. And for those of you who don't know, HEB is a grocery store chain located in Texas and in Mexico. And HEB simply stands for Here, Everything is Better. Well, after talking to one employee at HEB, I wasn't exactly convinced of that, and I want to share with you my story. I live in Dallas, Texas, and we have a tremendous problem here in the state. You see, thousands and thousands of kids drop out of school every single year here in the state, and that really doesn't bode well for the future of the state of Texas, nor does it bode well for the future of the United States of America. Not only do we have a problem with kids dropping out of school, we have literacy problems as well. And when you compare literacy rates in Texas to other states, the state of Texas really doesn't fare too well. Many kids simply can't read, and the kids who can read, many of them do not comprehend what they're reading. Now, we need to have kids to understand what they're reading, especially in an information-rich environment, an information-rich economy, which we are quickly and very progressively moving toward faster and faster every single day. America won't be able to compete internationally unless our kids can read. Now, this is an issue that I know HEB has had concerns about. Now, why? Because there have been numerous press clippings that they are concerned about literacy and dropouts and the achievement gap, etc. Many of these press announcements come from Charles Butt himself, who's the chairman of HEB. Now, I was even more convinced that HEB was really concerned about literacy after reading a recent article in Publishers Weekly. And I want to read you a quote from Jim Darlene, who's a senior buyer at HEB. And this is exactly what Jim had to say. Literacy for me is important because I love my company. And the future for any company is having an educated workforce. Well, that's certainly true, Jim. You're absolutely right about that. With all the video and gaming, a lot of kids have forgotten how important reading is, says Darlene. However, one driver for his literary push is personal. My life changed dramatically 9 years ago when I had my first grandson, he says. I'm not exactly sure how having a grandson would create a literacy push, but I was very curious and interested. So I thought I'd give Jim a call and just ask a couple of questions. And that's exactly what I did. So I called him, and he was on vacation, but a very nice person by the name of Christine Dempsey answered my call. And when Jim got back on vacation, Christine asked him to give me a call because, you see, we had the same last name, which I thought was kind of funny. Now, when Jim called me back a few days later, I said, listen, my name is Mark Dempsey, and I have a project that I think would be very, very helpful in reducing the number of dropouts in Texas and around the country. It would decrease the achievement gap, and it would encourage kids to stay in school. It would encourage kids to have a love for learning. It would encourage them to read, and it would reach out to minority communities, especially African American and Hispanic kids who nationally have a dropout rate of around 50%. And after reading his comments in Publishers Weekly, I just naturally assumed that he'd be interested in a project that would increase literacy. I mean, after all, he says here, literacy for me is important. Well, what happened? I asked him if I could send him the project, and I spent hours and hours and hours on it, and I sent it to him. He said, fine, go ahead, send it to me, and I did. And a couple of days later, I asked him if he had actually read it. He said no, it was sitting on his desk, but he had received it. So a couple of days later, he emails me and says something that I found very surprising. He says, I'm going to send it to Public Affairs. Well, I immediately called him and I said, hey, Jim, what's up with this? I don't understand. I thought that you would take a personal interest in it. And he said, nope, it needs to go to Public Affairs. And I said, well, could you please give me the name of the person that I should talk to at Public Affairs? And he said harshly, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm your contact here. That's all you need to know. I said, okay, well, that's fine. And I see every time I talked to Jim, except from the time that he got back from vacation, he sounded kind of angry, kind of pressured, real intense, kind of ticked off. Every conversation I had with him was very, very short and to the point. And I said to him, I said, well, you realize I don't want any money from HEB. And he said, no, I didn't realize that. And I said, well, that's why I'm sending it to Public Affairs. I thought you wanted funding. And I said, no, I don't want any funding. And you see, that's when it was very disappointing. Because then I realized that Jim had really not read my letter. At least he had not read it thoughtfully. Because any person who had read the letter would have instantly known that I did not want any money from HEB. I think what Jim did, he probably just gave the letter a cursory look, and then he thought he'd pass it on to Public Affairs. Well, did anyone from Public Affairs Contact me? Nope, not a soul. Not one person. Now, when did I send the information to Jim? I sent it to him on September the 7th. Now we're here at the end of the month. Not a soul. But you contacted me. But you see, HEB, I thought, would contact me because they have made numerous public announcements how they are concerned about kids and education and literacy and achievement gaps and all those things, and not a peep from anybody. I couldn't get anyone to thoughtfully read the letter at HEB and respond to me, which I thought was really surprising because you see, Charles Butt himself recently, just this year, testified before Congress, and this is what he had to say about achievement gaps and the negative effects it would have on businesses around the country. He had this to say: they impose the equivalent of a permanent national recession. It's devastatingly unaffordable to our nation. That's all true, Mr. Butt. You're absolutely correct. But when I approached HEB with a project that would narrow the achievement gaps, that would increase literacy, that would help kids, that wouldn't cost HEB a dime, I couldn't even get a response. No one responded to me whatsoever. Now, here's another quote that I think is very, very timely, and it's from Andrew Carnegie, who was a steel industrialist many years ago and a very, very wealthy and successful person. This is good advice. This is what he had to say. As I grow older, I pay less attention to what men say. I just watch what they do. And so the next time you hear any announcement, any press release from HEB that says they are really concerned about kids and literacy and all those things, you need to pay less attention to what they say and just watch what they do, which is basically nothing. Oh, they give money every now and then to teachers who do a good job, but is that going to make a meaningful difference statistically around the state as far as getting kids back in school and reading? No, it's not. Is it really going to change anything? No, it's not. Does it give HEB a little PR boost? Yes, it does. And do they get a tax deduction for every donation that they make to a nonprofit? Yes, it does. But will it make a meaningful difference? Does it show that they are genuinely interested in solving this problem that I've addressed in this video? And the answer to that question is no. You see, even though a buyer from HEB says that he is really concerned about literacy, you would never know that from talking to him, because that's not how he acted when it came to me anyway. Anyway, I wanted you to know about this. I think it's very, very important because you see, when you test public relations statements and you compare them to actions, many times they just don't match. And this is exactly the case in HEB's case. I wish it was different. I truly, truly do. I wish that someone had read my letter, and I wish someone had gotten back to me. But they never did. I guess they just didn't care to. I guess they just didn't care enough about kids. You see, HEB, here everything is not better because they could do a much, much better job. A much better job. My name is Mark Dempsey. I'm an author and journalist, and you're welcome to contact me directly if you like. My email address is markd112@yahoo.com. That's markd112@yahoo.com. Thanks so much for listening.